Hi, Nikki.
Oh yeah,
So I think one of your suggestions was boundaries, and I think it's a really good topic. Boundaries was something I didn't really know
yeah,
I
same.
needed, didn't know what they were. I didn't know, I certainly didn't know there were internal and external boundaries. That was more that came later when I went to my own therapist. So maybe, yeah, I think it's a great topic. So um I suppose I could start my boundaries. I didn't have any boundaries effectively. So I didn't have any real boundaries with my mother. I didn't have any boundaries with my father. I didn't, I knew the right from wrong. Like I had my own sort of idea of what right and wrong was. But when it came to sort of like relationships, there were things that I weren't happy about. Say for example, one of the things that really, I mean, even now if I think about it, and I was probably small because I'm sitting on the floor, but my parents were actively talking about me or my life in the room, and I'm in the room, but
Mm.
not once did they think to include me in the conversation, not ask me one. It was like they were deciding it for me, and I had no say in it, and I didn't even exist. And I was so frustrated. I was so angry. So things like that, which would probably maybe wouldn't have been too effectively damaging, as in there'd been no physical sort of uh, harm, but the harm was that it completely sort of uh, took away my, I suppose it dissipated my self-esteem and my
Yeah.
self-worth. I wasn't valued enough to be included in the conversation.
Mm.
So there was harm, obviously, and it did affect me. However, what I do enjoy about that experience was the fact that I was able to connect with the anger in that time. However, later on in life, I didn't connect, and I think that's probably because my my own idea of self, my own identity had dissipated or eroded effectively moving as I got older, and therefore I had less of a say. I had less of and so yeah, the more boundaries I needed as I grew older, whereas I had some of my own in the early years, which sounds pretty good actually. It sounds pretty normal, I would imagine, that there would be some instinctive, intuitive
Yeah.
need to be acknowledged and heard. But over time, that was conditioned out of me. Maybe because it wasn't, I wasn't allowed to be angry, I wasn't allowed to be sad, I wasn't allowed to be this, my feelings were wrong effectively. You got
Mm.
anything that you can sort of relate to?
Oh, when you said about being in the room and they're talking about you, I just thought, yeah, that's kind of sounds very familiar. There's like, and that was when I remember being, oh, I'd left school, so I must have been like 17, 18. And my mum having a conversation with my cousin about me, and it's like, well, I'm literally sitting right here, can't you see me? And it is that feeling that, like you said, that you don't matter. Your opinion is worthless. Even though it's your life, it no one really cares about what you want or what you think. But like you, I had no boundaries, didn't even know what boundary was. I was, your typical people pleaser. And it's only kind of well, in the last few years that I've kind of understood what a boundary. I mean, I ended up finding this lady called Terry Cole, this American lady who calls herself the boundary boss. And I followed her for a bit just to understand what are boundaries. And I think that's the thing that probably a lot of people struggle with. What is a boundary? And even sometimes when you know what it is or what the boundary is that you want to put in place, it's then trying to implement that and keep it there because that's the hard part. because it doesn't feel right when you've been a people pleaser pretty much all your life to then say, actually, you know what, this isn't working for me. You then got to face that kind of the backlash of that is if upsetting somebody. And you're not used to doing that. So that can feel a bit, uncomfortable. I don't know what to do here. I don't know how to pay. And then you kind of feel like being pulled back to that old people pleasing self. No, 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 it's fine. But then you've got to remember, no, 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 no. If things have got to change, then I have to stick to my guns here. And it's really difficult. It is really difficult.
Yeah, I relate to that, and that's what happened to me. So I started going to Codependence Anonymous, and in that fellowship, which is all basically about you making somebody else the focus of your attention to avoid dealing with the stuff that you're not dealing with yourself.
Mm.
So I'm fixing you to avoid having to fix me. And one of the things that I felt immediately when I started to practice putting in boundaries was that I would feel guilty and I'd feel that they were really harsh,
Yeah,
even though they weren't, even though logically I could see that they weren't harmful. They felt as though I was being really cruel.
yeah,
And that just showed me the level of compliance that I'd got used to, that, I just became that exploding doormat. Whereas you could walk all over me and then I'd explode at some point because I wasn't expressing my anger when I needed to at the right time. And
mm,
that anger invariably would come out at somebody who didn't deserve it.
yeah,
But putting in a boundary, I wanted to immediately then go back and rescue them from my boundary,
mm,
which, now I just realized that, it's because I just hadn't ever got used to that ring fencing what I'm willing to accept from others. And keeping out the stuff that I wasn't willing to accept. I just hadn't really ever. I never thought that I was allowed that. I wasn't allowed to have boundaries. Maybe.
it just becomes like normality, doesn't it? The way that, it's because, like you said before, it's the conditioning from such a young age, it just becomes the norm. So you
Mm.
don't realize that there is an alternative. It's
Yeah,
just like this is life, and you kind of accept it as that. But it's not till you start doing like inner work and things like that that you realize this stuff, and it's like, oh, okay. And then you see your patterns and you see where things haven't been quite right. And that's when you can take that step back and look at yourself and go, ah, yeah, perhaps I shouldn't have, but we learn, don't we, as we go along. And so don't beat ourselves up just because we didn't know any better at the time.
yeah. And actually, sometimes when I was again, it was when more when I was younger, when I was still able to sort of put in a boundary. So my mum would sort of like try and make me feel guilty that she was on her own, she was lonely. And I would still go out and play with my brother and the boys in the road and play football up the Cotman Dean. But I wouldn't enjoy a second of it
Mm,
because I'd be feeling guilty that I'd left mum on her own and she needed company. So even though I put my foot down and said, no, I'm going, I couldn't enjoy an ounce of it. So, I think there it sort of teaches me that it's almost like an illness at one point, because even though there was a part of me that felt as though um, I don't want to abandon myself and my needs and wants, invariably I had to anyway, because it was just too, it was too mentally and emotionally sort of exhausting
mm,
to keep to my boundaries. And that is where I feel, I suppose, the sadness really, because it's like, it was torturous sometimes to actually just try and be away from mum when she wanted me to keep her company.
yeah.
Um, but equally, it was torturous being with her sometimes when when I didn't want to be there. So I was stuck between those two difficult, rock and hard places, they say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the problem. It is like you said, it kind of feels the wrong thing to do, but at the same time it feels like the right thing for you. And it's that kind of difficult, what do you do with that feeling? It's a very mixed feeling, isn't it? You know
Yeah,
you're doing the right thing, but at the same time it feels like the wrong thing. There's a quote, I can't remember the lady that said it. I think it's a lady that said it. She said, um, I might have got this misquoted, but she says something like, "A boundary is the distance from which I can love both you and myself at the same time."
yeah, lovely.
Yeah, and that's what it's about, isn't it? It's not rejecting the other person for any other reason apart from trying to protect yourself.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and a lot of people, or a lot of people, some people find it difficult when you've put that boundary in place, especially when they're not used to you doing things like that. And they're like, well, who are you? What's happened to the old Nikki that would just do anything? And they
yeah.
try and push back, and that's tough as well. When you've then really got to stick to it, it can be difficult.
Yeah, and you find out pretty quickly who's been used to not having the boundaries with you and are getting what they need. And as
Exactly.
soon as you do put a boundary in place, their reaction is pretty, severe.
Yeah.
So you know then that they've been taking advantage
Yeah.
of that and they don't like the boundary at all. And they
No.
will they will have no problem telling you that. But I suppose in a way that's where you start thinking, well, this is where actually I'm going to start sorting out or filtering out the people in my life that actually do care for, well, respect me. I think respect is the key,
Mm.
really, isn't it?
Yeah. That is.
So
Yeah.
the people that respect me and the people that don't respect me. I remember I had a friend of mine who he'd shown a lot of lack of respect for me recently, over the last few months, and I'd still stayed friends. And then eventually I put a boundary in, and he literally just sort of stopped. Well, he put the phone down
Oh.
and then obviously had a rethink and started calling me back and started to try and sort of make out that I'd um, misinterpreted his, but actually I just I never went back to it because I just suddenly realized that actually um, that sort of manipulation, it'd become a one-sided sort of friendship anyway. So it was only a matter of time. Um, but even then, even though we cut off, I was sore,
Yeah.
emotionally sore for a
Yeah.
long
It's
while
understandable. Yeah.
to keep that sort of okay, no contact boundary in.
Mm.
Um, but it was also good for me to sort of learn to build a foundation of some sorts that, I don't need to sort of have these relationships anymore. I don't need to have, I think there was a part of me that just wanted everyone to love me, and which was, it's not possible. It's not, you
Mm.
know, that sort of expectation is only, going to cause upset, resentment, disappointment, because it's just not possible. And actually, I didn't, that was the extent of my, I suppose, my disease really is the fact that I was so so I suppose desperate, desperate to feel whole, thinking that it was external validation, attention
Mm.
that could only feel that, and obviously then never getting that realized.
Well, the trouble is that when you're trying to appease everybody for everybody to like you, you're not being your true self.
That's right.
you're just kind of being this chameleon that's just fitting in with whoever. And
Yeah,
then that feels uncomfortable because you can't relax because you can't just be you.
that's
You
right.
just being untrue to yourself. But the thing is not everyone is meant to like us, and that's just the way that life is. And if we
Yeah,
can be ourselves, then we just attract the people that are right for us.
that's right.
But it can be
And
difficult.
it's feeling those feelings that actually I'm not going to be liked by people is that
Yeah,
it makes you
yeah,
right sized, doesn't it?
yeah.
And it makes the world a little bit more real, because you actually start then appreciating that actually it's quite exhausting wanting everyone to like me anyway.
It
So
is.
actually,
Yeah.
few less people to worry about trying to um, convince, or to, I suppose, be charismatic too. Then actually, that's less work. So this is actually going to benefit me.
Yeah, because I think it's hard work when you're not being your true self, isn't it? You're just playing
Oh
this
God, yeah,
character, and
yeah,
that's exhausting in itself.
mm,
But I think
yeah,
it's a natural human thing, isn't it? Just to want to be accepted and want to be liked.
mm,
And I think it's not, I think growing up, it's probably perhaps harder maybe to understand that not everybody is for you.
mm.
Because especially like at school, it's that popularity thing, isn't it? Where, it's good to have friends, and if you don't have many friends, then you might get picked on for not having many friends. So it's very difficult, isn't it, when you're growing up to have that kind of understanding that it's okay, it's quality over quantity. But
Yeah. Something what I do with my clients, especially if they're going through a tough time, and normally that's the beginning of the coaching relationship, right? Is when the big reveal is, what is the biggest, um, or what is the most, I suppose, what is the biggest problem at the moment that's causing the most harm or distress or anxiety or emotional collapse, I suppose, is what is that thing at the moment that's giving you the most pressure,
mm,
or where you feel the most pressure. And that is usually when someone sort of like will divulge that. um I've forgotten where I was going.
been a long day.
This is when you get over 50. Forgetting where I was going with that.
It's
It'll
like
come back to me.
like
It'll come
walking
back to
into
me.
a room. It's like the other day, I thought, oh, I need to go and get a pen, and I came into my study to get a pen, and then I got in here and I was like, what do I come in here for? Yeah, pad. I went back to the kitchen. It's like, no, I wanted a pen. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
stupid things.
yeah, yeah. So yeah. So I suppose in the early days when you're dealing with a client, and they're exposing, I suppose, the biggest vulnerable part of themselves. That is really where, um, that is when you really have to start sort of like, having a look at where their internal and external boundaries are with others. My one of my first things is that when they're in that position where they feel, I suppose, um, they might need work after the session,
Mm,
as in they might need support after the session. Like who is in your inner circle, and just having a session actually on that inner circle work is
mm,
really, really productive, and I think that's really empowering. Because I think it is important, isn't it? And like some people will have four or five people in their inner circle. So actually, let's just give this a bit more context. So an inner circle is basically, for me, anyone in the inner circle is someone who accepts me completely as I am. Whether I'm up, down, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, whatever. They accept me for whatever I am. They don't expect me to be anybody else. They don't need me to be anybody else. And therefore that's I've got that sort of pure, sort of easy flowing relationship where I can say whatever. I don't need to sort of
Just be
be
you.
mindful of what I'm saying to them.
Yeah.
That, and it's obviously, uh it's the same for me, for them, it's
Mm.
and once I've got those names in that inner circle, those are the people that I now need to say, look, I'm good. I'm doing this therapy. I'm doing some coaching with somebody. I'm working on this part of myself, which is making me feel like this, blah, blah, blah. Um, I may need more of your support than I'm used to, or you're used to, while I go through this period. Would that be okay for me to, that's the sort of
Mm.
thing I suggest that they ask their people in their inner circle. Look, I might need to lean on you a bit more than I
Yeah.
do normally because I'm going through this and I just need some wholly sort of like nutritious friendship.
Hmm.
And I think, when you're explaining what that inner circle is, and then the circle outside of it, which is the next one, which is where you can basically be yourself with somebody. There might be one or two areas that you can't really bring up or discuss, or maybe you don't see eye to eye on, but mainly, so you're still lucky really to have people like that. It's not
Yeah.
completely like fluid, but you've got those. And one of the main things that I do say is that you might find that not one of your family members is in your inner circle, and that's okay.
Mm.
And actually, the most people probably that I've worked with a lot of clients, and it's very rare to have anybody have more than six people in their inner circle. And I certainly didn't have six people.
Mm.
And I had one client who had only one, but that one was enough. So
Yeah.
it's not about the amount of people in that inner circle, because they're all quality.
Yeah.
Even if it's just one, it's a quality relationship, which is enough.
Yeah, exactly. That was what makes a difference. Yeah. I was just trying to think about my inner circle. I think mine's very small. But that's
Yeah,
okay. So, it's
but
okay.
that's normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I say, there's not many people that have got more. There's certainly no one's had double figures as far as I've. So, that in itself um, is a really good start for people just to acknowledge that actually I've got a lot more than I thought I had. They
Mm.
become grateful almost immediately. Is actually I've got some really good stuff here. Actually, I've got some really I'm pretty fortunate that I've got these really good people around me. So actually, I'm already feeling better. I'm already feeling more grateful. And I think that's gratitude is the key to all
Mm, definitely.
progress, isn't it? Really, because gratitude is makes you obviously a lot more lighter in life.
Yeah.
It's the source of all manifestation of abundance and prosperity.
Mm.
Grateful for what you've got will give you abundance, will give you prosperity. It's not what you're missing. You're grateful for all what you have got, and that's when more comes in. So yeah, is there anything that you sort of like?
We'll continue on the gratitude thing. I think that is, like you say, that is really key. It's really important.
Mm,
And I think a lot of people, they sometimes think, well, what have I got to be grateful for if their life is quite difficult or they're finding things quite difficult? But there's always something to be grateful for, even waking up, having a roof over your head, food to eat, clothes to wear. It's all
yeah.
the little things that we take for granted that we forget about. Having friends, having people in our inner circle,
Mm,
having a job, if we have a job, there's all these, like, there's always something that, even if it's something really small, that we can be grateful for. And it is shifting that focus, because when we can then shift the focus and realize that actually we perhaps have more than what we realized we did, like you're saying about the people with their inner circle suddenly realizing that perhaps they've got more than what they even noticed they had, or more than most people had. So that can be a good mindset shift.
Mm.
And then that can help if they've got boundaries to put in place with the people in their outer circle. But it doesn't matter too much if they push back and they lose them as friends, because they know that they've got those ones that really matter, those ones that are going to be there for them regardless. So just knowing that can really help.
Yeah, and I think also with, you know, what I try to get across to people is that we don't get away with anything.
Mm,
If we try and shortcut something, if we try and sort of put a band-aid over something, you know, it's still unresolved. There's still
yeah,
something there that needs to come out.
yeah,
And even though we might have put half a boundary in with a person, they're still going to take advantage with the half that there isn't a boundary of. So you're still
yeah,
not, you know, it has got to be a full and, you know, stated boundary. Um, but you know that's difficult to do. That's difficult to if you're starting from new, and putting in a boundary is feeling completely alien, and it's really difficult to first of all articulate it to somebody. So you know, this is my boundary, uh, and this is what I want you to respect from now on. Just saying that sort of thing, like, you know, I don't want to talk about this subject anymore because I feel that we get into an area where we have a clash of personality, or you know,
mm,
I don't think it's conducive to our relationship to have this brought up. I think it's just something that we disagree on, and there's no point in us bringing it up. You know, just having that statement can
mm,
be difficult because that fear of confrontation, that fear of, you know, splitting the relationship, breaking the relationship, or harming the relationship.
yeah, that's difficult. I think some people, well, the thing is that some people could perhaps, with their own issues that they're dealing with, want to cause arguments. So when you're then putting that boundary in place that you just mentioned, they're not going to like that because they want that. Some people are addicted to the chaos and the drama.
Mm,
So it's having to deal with the comeback. And I mean, I've used it before when someone's got quite irate with me on the phone through their issues, their anger issues. And in the past, I would go into defense, defend whatever it is they're saying or whatever. And then, like, putting my boundaries in place, I got to a point where I was able quite calmly just to say, I don't like the way that this conversation is going.
mm,
I think I'm just going to leave this here for now, and I'll come back to it later when we've both calmed down. And that trying to do it calmly as well, when you can feel that kind of, because the automatic response when someone is being angry towards you is to defend yourself and feel anger back. So it's just taking that breath, that pause, and just go, no, I don't want to feel this way. I just want to be calm. And then just calmly saying, yeah, this isn't a conversation I want to be having in this tone. So I'm just going to come back to this at a later date. That
mm.
that takes time. I found it's a skill that can be learned because I've learned it. So, but it is that trying to fight with that natural reaction that we just do as a human,
Yeah.
taking that pause and just going, no, just noticing that emotion, whatever it might be, noticing yourself wanting to react and just go, no, no, I want to stay calm in this, because otherwise you're going to just have this back and forth all the time. And it's just going to, like you say, it's just going to end up causing chaos and splitting relationships and whatever. But it is very difficult. I think it's very difficult to know that you need boundaries, to know what those boundaries are, to know how to put them in place, and
Mm.
then keeping them there.
yeah, and it's okay to to make mistakes. It's
Yeah,
okay
yeah,
to
yeah,
not get it right. It's
yeah,
okay to
exactly. Yeah,
not feel confident when you're stating your boundary.
yeah,
It's okay to not be completely 100% assertive when you're putting in that boundary. You've got to
yeah,
start somewhere. And even if
yeah, exactly.
there's been
Mm.
times when I've put in a boundary and I felt I've sounded really weak, but I've still said it.
Yeah,
And that's the key, isn't it? It's you
yeah,
still do it regardless because
yeah,
you've got to start somewhere.
yeah. And even if you slip up, even if you put it in place and then the next day with someone else you forget about it, it's like, oh, I know better than this, but we're all human. We're gonna,
Mhm.
especially in the early days, you're gonna have those going back to our patterns, and it's just being kind to yourself. I always say to my clients, no matter what, always be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
No point beating yourself up about it.
Yeah. I think um one of the things that I always sort of again go back to is that if I've got somebody that I need to put a boundary in, I've got to remember that I've got friends and people that I don't need to put boundaries in because, or I have put boundaries in and it's not been a problem because they've respected it.
Mm.
Is that if this relationship, if by putting this boundary into this relationship, I effectively then lose this relationship, then I've got these friendships that I've still got, so I'll be
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
And again, it's that sort of, am I willing to lose this relationship because um I want to I want my needs to be met. Um and it's okay to also, just to sit there and negotiate that with yourself. Is what okay,
Mm.
what is it that what's the best outcome for this? What is the least I want to accept as well? That knowing that you might ask for something to be met, but there might be some sort of discussion afterwards that actually, if you don't get this, would this still be acceptable, or does this need to be implemented? And if not, then it's not going to work
Mm.
because
Yeah,
there's so many grey areas, right?
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. But then it goes back to what we said at the beginning that if you put a boundary in place and someone resists that or doesn't like it, then maybe they're just not the right person for you.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
That's right.
yeah.
That's a good subject.
So, what would
So
your
then,
advice be for someone who's struggling with a boundary, putting it in place?
well, I would make sure that I go through with them why that boundary is needed. Um, what's the consequence? So what is it you're sacrificing not to put the boundary in?
Mm.
And is it worth it? So by not putting the boundary in, how are you suffering for not having that boundary in? Is it worth suffering for?
Yeah.
Because that's the key, isn't it? What can you live with?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because if you're putting up with someone's behavior that isn't conducive to a healthy relationship, then how is this taking something from you? And if so, how much?
Mm.
And is it worth it? Because I think, say like with human relationships, say like if it's say like a parent, obviously an adult child says to their parent, Mum, I don't want you, you know, offering me advice on parenting in this arena of it, um, which is a perfectly reasonable question, you know, perfectly reasonable request. But
Mm.
if if it means that parent then decides to completely sort of cut off contact because of that one area, is it really enough? Is it important enough to cut off completely the relationship. You know, I would arguably say that actually, if it's important enough for you to state it, it's important enough,
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
no matter what the result. But equally, I have parents come to me and their adult child has been unreasonable. They feel has been unreasonable in the fact that they've cut off contact with their parents
Mm,
because their parents have done something, but there's been no real explanation of why they've been cut off, or they've not really been explained how the boundary has come about, or why the boundary has been required.
yeah.
I also get a few where, sort of like you've got a mother and son. The son goes off and has a relationship with another person, and then that person does not like the mother, and then that person gets the mother's son to withdraw from the relationship with his mother
Yeah.
because they've got a tug of war, or maybe
Mm,
there's different, clash of personality, and that's very difficult for the parent because actually, that son uh, is then split, has got that split loyalty, and which way
mm,
do I pull? And you don't always get to speak to the actual adult child, so you just have to deal with the parent and the parents' fallout from that,
yeah.
and that can be really difficult. That's a really difficult one.
Yeah, that must be because if you don't understand, it's okay to be able to say to somebody, well, this is how I want to be treated, or this is what I will or will not tolerate. But if someone has just had no contact without that explanation, that must be really difficult, especially if
Yeah,
it's your child.
yeah.
It must be really difficult to comprehend.
And all that takes is that somebody's got a problem who doesn't feel invested emotionally enough to tell that person directly.
Mm,
So they tell it through their spouse. And of course, the spouse isn't the one with the actual problem. So their articulation of the problem is always diluted,
yeah.
or it's even incorrect because they're not feeling it themselves. It's not their issue.
Mm,
But it's still going to be equally as hurtful to hear,
definitely.
especially if it's diluted and doesn't really make any sense. It's
Yeah.
just going to make it even worse. It's that sort of, I don't understand it.
Mm,
But again, it's that sort of, so, the estrangement issue can be really, really, really difficult. So, and boundaries, you have to respect other people's boundaries. So if somebody said, I don't want you to contact me, you've got to honor that boundary.
yeah.
You're not going to reform
Mm,
that relationship if you don't honor the boundary. And
exactly.
that's even more difficult, is that you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That must be really hard.
And that's why people come to me, is I don't know what to do with myself. I've been issued a no contact boundary. I haven't been explained to me exactly why that is, which is killing me.
Mm,
But I don't know what to do because I'm left in this, you know, anxiety. I'm left in this sort of like limbo, and I don't know how to live with myself while I'm in this, because this is, and usually people come to me because they've been suffering that for at least 2 years. It's
mm,
not like that it's fresh. It's
yeah.
they've lived with that pain for 2 years or so, even longer. So it's really difficult stuff. And but again, it's like, you know, I I have to honor my friendships, my relationships by being clear on what the boundary is,
Mm,
because I owe it to them. Then they can do whatever they like with it. But as long as I make sure that they know why because it's almost like a control thing. If you don't explain it all to them, it's like, no, I'm going to get them to guess. I'm going to get them. They should
Yeah.
know what the problem is. That's a favorite one. That's a killer one as well. And that's just someone not having the courage to explain.
To actually say, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
how
there's
does
some,
somebody, sorry, I was going to go back to what you're saying just now about someone who's been given a no contact boundary and suffered with that for a couple of years. If you're unable to ever find out the reason, how can you advise them to navigate that going forward?
well, the issue is that they need to be doing something. The fact is they can do nothing. That's what they're telling themselves, and that's where the pain is. However, even though there is a no contact boundary, a very clear no contact boundary, there is still stuff that you can do that makes you feel as though you're still doing what you can
Right.
to try and form a resolution or a you know a reconnection,
Mm,
um, because even if it's not, I'm sending them texts, I'm sending them birthday cards, because that might be a stipulation. There is no contact whatsoever, no cards, no Christmas cards, no nothing, no acknowledgement of any special days. They can still do something around their own home to remind them of the relationship that they had. So if it's, say, like, for example, a mother and son, the mother can still have pictures of their son around. They can
mm,
talk to that picture. They can imagine times when they had a really good, strong, loving friendship, relationship. They can post things on their social media which suggests that they're being thought of. So I'm not allowed to contact my son, but I can post a picture of me and my son together on the beach in West Wittering in
mm.
1975 when he was 4 or whatever, because there's still stuff there that he might actually see
Yeah.
that could then give him the impression that actually, he might be missing out on something by honoring this boundary. And actually, is there something that can be renegotiated? Can we come to the table again? Is there something that actually I've probably been a bit harsh on? Because when you have got a new spouse and you've got a mother that don't get on, this is just purely an example, um, and you've got that sort of, you're being torn in two different ways. You can either sit there and say, look, you two are the ones that have the issue. You discuss and negotiate this between yourselves. Don't bring me into it. Or if you insist on me being involved, then I need to sort of I need to let you know that I'm not willing to completely have no contact with this person just because you have a problem. And equally, I'm the other way as well. So if you two are going to agree to disagree, then you know um the son's got to basically stand up for what they believe is right
Yeah.
and what's reasonable, what is
Mm,
reasonable. But this is all really, when you're in the moment, when you're in the emotion of it, if you're really close to it, you can't see all of this. You can't, because you're
mm.
too close to it. You're
Yeah.
in it, and you
Yeah.
can't see what reasonable is. You can't see what the right thing to do is because you're in amongst it.
Mm,
This is why you need somebody who's not emotionally invested to come and give you a bit of a different perspective.
yeah. This is it. Yeah. Because that's the trouble. When you're in it, all you see is that you can't see beyond. And it, like you say, it takes for
Yeah,
that other person to come in and to be able to just give that overview.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So I suggest that if anybody who's watching this or listening to this does have an issue with boundaries or something else, or maybe there's something that you've got burning, that you contact us or one of us. Just put some comments below, and we'll be monitoring the comments ourselves. So we'll respond where we can, and yeah, if there's anything that you think you'd like to know more about, give us some examples of what you might like to have explained, or maybe some situations which you might find difficult or perplexing. Just let us know, and we'll do our best to respond, or maybe we'll even cover it in a podcast.
Mm, definitely.
So thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you all again soon.